Hello again, and welcome to a special edition of the hashtag Am Writing podcast, the working bookshelf, aka Am Reading About Writing. I am KJ Dell'Antonia, the New York Times bestselling author of The Chicken Sisters and How to Be a Happier Parent, and I'm also a former editor at the Times.
And I'm Jennie Nash. I'm an author, a book coach, an entrepreneur, and creator of the Book Coach Certification Program at Author Accelerator.
In every episode of this series, Jenny and I will discuss and debate a pair of popular books on writing, focusing on a specific topic like structure, creativity, characterization, or productivity.
We'll tell you why these books are our favorites, then engage in heated debate over which is better in our Bite Me segment before getting sidetracked into a discussion of the topic itself.
The result will be our usual actionable and insightful, yeah, I'm going to go with that, and inspirational advice that will help you get your work done, whether you're a seasoned pro, just getting started, switching genres, or somewhere in the middle of that particular game.
Today is episode number 2, and we're talking about plotting and structure.
I love this. This is like one of my favorite topics. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to talk about my favorite plotting and structure book, Save the Cat Writes a Novel.
And I'm going to be talking about The Situation and the Story by Vivian Gornick, which is a oldie but goodie.
Excellent. I love an oldie but goodie. All right. So let's see. How should we get started? We're going to talk about what we like about our two respective books.
Yeah, we're going to do a recap so people know what they are.
All right. Save the Cat. Save the Cat. The original Save the Cat was a screenwriting manual. And then people used it for novel writing for a long, long time. And then Jessica Brody, with the permission of the guy who created it, turned it into a specific to novel thing. But the thing that really stands out about it and that it gets from its movie heritage is the intense focus on the core story. So that's what this is about, is like what makes a story move from one thing to another and grab you and keep you going with it.
I love it. So The Situation and the Story it's kind of a strange little book because it's about a lot of different things, and it's dense and it's kind of all over the place, and I'm not making it sound like it's very good, but there is a core idea in this book that Vivian Gornick explains in such a way that it cracked for me open everything that I understand about all structure in all genres all the time. And I find that it tends to do that for anyone else who reads it. And the title gets at what that thing is, which is that there is a difference between the plot and what we see and what happens and what the real story running underneath it is, and the real reason why we read. And she gets at this idea from a lot of different angles and directions and places. But even just the opening, or maybe I'm skipping ahead to why I like it, but even just the opening, she does this. She's sitting at a funeral listening to eulogies, and they're kind of boring, and people are joining on, and she, being a thinker about story, is listening, and then somebody speaks, and she's like, wait, this is actually really good. This is actually really engaging. This is actually bringing this dead doctor to life. And she starts by asking, why? Why is this eulogy better than somebody else's, these other ones? What did this person do that was different? And she gets into it that way. And it's just so good. I just love it so much.
Great. Write better eulogies using no. I'm sorry.
Well, but the idea of that is that we're natural storytellers.
Yeah.
Storytellers are everywhere in our lives, and we've all been in situations. I usually use the example of some aunt cornering you at a cocktail party, and I get to say that because I actually don't have any aunts, so I'm not offending anybody.
Safe choice.
But, like they corner you and they're going on about their hip replacement and you're just like, why am I listening to this? And that's the thing so many writers have to figure out is, what am I really writing about? What am I really saying? Who am I really saying it to? And I just don't think you can plot or structure or do anything with your story until you get that super
Right.
basic thing down.
So like the situation is a glass dome has come down over this town and encased it, slicing a groundhog in half as it descends. That's a situation. The story is somebody in that town. I don't actually haven't read that particular book, but I think it's a good example of a distinction.
Totally. Actually, she has, I'm going to read because she has, it's just a great little paragraph. So she says, every work of literature has both a situation and a story. The situation is the context or circumstance, sometimes the plot. The story is the emotional experience that preoccupies the writer, the insight, the wisdom, the thing one has come to say. In An American Tragedy, the situation is Dreiser's America. The story is a pathological nature of hunger for the world. In Edmund Goss's memoir, Father and Son, the situation is fundamentalist England in the time of Darwin. The story is the betrayal of intimacy necessary to the act of becoming oneself. In a poem called In the Waiting Room, Elizabeth Bishop describes herself at the age of 7 during the First World War, sitting in a dentist's office, turning the pages of National Geographic, listening to the muted cries of pain her timid aunt utters from within. That's the situation. The story is a child's first experience of isolation, her own, her aunt's, and that of the world.
So those are all like pretty huge thematic thoughts, even the ones about the story. This is the opposite. Like this is totally the opposite of that. I mean, it's all about situation and theme, but this is very much like great, this is a story about isolation, but in order to tell a story about isolation, Elizabeth Bishop, we need to have act one, and we need to hear about what the theme is, and then we need to see where your person is now, and then we need to have act two where things change. Like this is the nitty and the gritty without ignoring the theme. Like this is I guess the thing that I really love about this is that it combines both situation and story, or plot and theme, if you will, into like a really actionable, manageable package that you can't untwist them because they are locked in.
I mean, I think and love that. And this is, you can tell by the examples she gives, it's pretty academic, it's pretty dense, it's pretty literary, and that is, it's really good for understanding this idea of what actually is structure. What, structure is figuring out a way to contain this thing you want to say. And whether or not you're writing a novel or a screenplay or a poem or any nonfiction genre, memoir or how to self-help, this applies. This idea of what is the framework I'm even working in, what is the container that I'm building for this thing, it's like a really big idea to wrap your mind around. And I think you need to have that. I mean, then you absolutely need to have what Save the Cat has. You absolutely need to go to the step-by-step. What is the opening scene? What is the,
so if this is Fight Me Now,
yeah.
like, this is good for if you don't know that you're writing a book about, isolation and or whatever. If what you've got is a dome sliding down over a city and slicing a groundhog in half, but this is going to make you go, okay, great. I have a dome, but I need a person, and that person needs to change, and I need to figure out, what it is about this story that makes that person change, and how those things are tied together. So I don't think about this stuff in a very academic way. So I find this a more accessible, like, it's not so hard for me to think about theme when you point out to me, as this book does, that people like state the theme of their book in the first few pages, and the Save the Cat will give you a bunch of these really awesome examples. I love it. So uh, and I might add, they're different examples. So in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, they state the theme in the first pages by saying, Mom is always saying I'm a smart kid, but I don't apply myself. In Me Before You, which is a Jojo Moyes book, it's what exactly do you want to do with your life, asked by somebody else. And they're like, sometimes in a movie you'll drive by a billboard that has the theme or something like that. And I love that really mechanical way of like telling you how to stuff it in there. And you can do it in that mechanical way, and then you're going to like rub around the edges so it doesn't look quite so blunt. But I found that really helpful as someone who's never been like, reading for theme makes me feel like I'm in a English class that I'm not qualified for.
No, for sure. And I think that I will concede the fight me segment to you this time for because of that precise thing. This book, The Situation and Story, it for me, it was part of my learning, it was part of my knowing, it was part of my training. I love the idea of just understanding that super basic point that there is a situation and there is a story,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the big takeaway for me. But this book does suffer from what you talk about, that very dense, there's pages I still don't think I actually even understand. I just read that passage with those examples. I think I read one of those books 40 years ago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
that it does have an inaccessible academic nature to it. And I personally have a massively big problem with the way writing is taught in academia in this country. I think it is too precious. I think it is too focused on this reverse engineering of what the writer thought, and not the idea of what actually is story and how do you make one. So I have a lot of problems with the provenance, I guess, of this book. And I stinking love a book like you're holding in your hands, which is, it's for the writer now. It's for somebody who wants to write to be published and read. It's for somebody who wants to get the work done. Like, I do deeply love that, and have more of a problem with the precious nature of a book like this.
Well, there's a place for both, right? Now, I'll be gracious in my victory. So, yeah, there is a place for both, but if I can only have one, I'm definitely going to save the cat because
Totally.
this is, yeah. So, when you're thinking out your first, like when you're looking at the blank page, which we talked about a little bit in the last episode, but you're actually ready to start typing. It's my experience that if I start typing without a mental picture of what the structure should be, um, I end up with something super flabby. And it often has the structure like hiding deep inside. But it is my hope every time that I start again to pull out this and to actually maybe get the structure at least close the first time, instead of, I mean, if you're writing and you're writing a story, you're gonna change your character, and you're going to have these other, and you're probably going to have someone that tells them what their problem is, and you're probably, so you're going to have a lot of these elements, but you're going to have a lot of other crap too. So
Totally.
yeah, a book like this can save, if you're willing, it can really save you um a lot of, or I think it could save you a lot of time. I have sort of sucked at that, at least this time around. And I didn't discover it for the Chicken Sisters, so I didn't I didn't
You didn't know?
I didn't know that I could have made it easier on myself.
Well, I would say that if somebody has tried to write something and it hasn't worked, and so how do you know that? You know that if you tried to submit to agents and you got a bunch of form rejection letters. You know that if you asked people to read it and their feedback was lukewarm, and they didn't finish, or they never got back to you. You know that if you look inside your own heart and you know that you don't love what you wrote. Like, there's a lot of different reasons why you might know that what you did, it didn't work.
Or if
And
you, I mean, this is what has been going on with me for this current draft is that I have a situation. I love my situation, but I have really struggled with finding the story within, my dome. And my situation is not a dome descending on a town and slicing a groundhog in half.
I
That's
wish
Stephen
it
King.
was. I
In
wish it
case
was.
that Stephen King has already done that. But yeah, yeah. So if part of if you keep kind of going back and going, well, I have this what if, but you can't answer, so what?
Yeah, I think that's excellent. So if you find yourself there's two things that you need to do. One is you need to fix this thing that's not working, this actual project that you have that's not working. And the other is you need to figure out why it's not working so that
Mm-hmm.
you can fix it. And so I would say that this book is good if you're wanting to understand on a sort of academic, how does this all work level? Why am I not getting this? Am I missing something? I think understanding the difference between the situation and the story will deeply help you. But then you have to do the thing that you're talking about. If you want to fix the actual project and now you understand what you did wrong, you have to look at it
Right. Do you have
scene
a
by scene.
page in there that's dog-eared? Like, is there something?
Oh my gosh.
You have
So
a
I mean this
billion.
is this is just personal for me, but there is a section in here where Vivian Gornick breaks down an essay by Joan Didion. It's an essay from Joan Didion's book, The White Album, and it's called To Bed. And it's this tiny little piece of writing. It's like 1,500 words. And it's actually a story about migraine. It's an essay about Joan Didion and migraine. And when I read this book, The Situation, the Story, I am a sufferer of migraine. I think I read these pages holding my breath because the breakdown of this piece of writing was so precise, and it so deeply captured this idea of writing about your own migraine. There's so many pitfalls in that, and I work with a lot of memoir writers, and there's just so many pitfalls about writing about your own illness or your own grief or your own affair or whatever the situation is, right? And I try to help memoir writers understand that's what's so critical is, okay, that's your situation, but what's your story? Why does the reader care? Why does anybody care? And just seeing how in this 1,500 word essay, Joan Didion does the precise thing that every writer is trying to do. And she does it so masterfully. And this book led me to that essay. And that essay about migraine really was the thing that helped me come to peace with my own body, my own illness. And it was really understanding. I mean, this is getting super deep now, right? That we have a situation and a story in our own lives too. Like there's a situation, which is I get migraines, and then there's the story that I tell around that thing, and that I believe around that thing. And so this book, actually, that page is the dog-eared page for me because I go back to it over and over and over again because it helps me understand my own self. It helps me understand memoir writers I'm trying to help. It helps me understand this gorgeous piece of writing that I love of Joan Didion's. Like that's kind of a lot of punch for one page.
That is a lot of punch for one page. And
It's more than one
that
page,
makes
but
me,
still.
I know, but that makes me want to read it because I love um analysis. Like I love tearing apart of things that worked. And you don't see tearing apart of an essay that worked as often, I think, as you do a story or a movie. So I am intrigued and now want to go get this book, which
I
I have
actually,
not
in
read.
rereading for our little conversation today, reread those pages, and there are still things in it that when I say that Vivian Gornick is so smart and this is so dense, I saw things in it this time. I was like, oh, I never saw that. I never knew that. Oh, I'm gonna have to go look at.
Oh, wow.
There's so many layers. Like she talks about the fact that this little essay, this Joan Didion essay, actually mimics the shape of a migraine, and I was like,
Wow.
what? Like I never thought about that or saw that in the page before. And now I have to go back and read Joan Didion's essay again. So it's just one of those, it has a long tail. I think that's the word you use, that this book really sticks with you. It doesn't run through your fingers. It really sticks with you.
Right.
So what's
Um,
your dog-eared page?
my dog-eared page is like similarly, it's a couple of pages. So it's the beat sheet. So Save the Cat is known for what's called a beat sheet, which is it tells you what things have to happen in any story. And what I really love is there's actually a page where it's like, and this is where in the story, like where the thing has to happen. So you have to have the midpoint, and you have to have um, the the all is lost moment, and it sort of tells you how much verbiage you get to get yourself to that moment. And I love that because it can help me to break down something that seems like such a big bite into much more chewable, pieces. It's like, well, I get uh, X thousand words before I need to be heading into act two. And if I'm not, and again, you can use this when you've already got a draft. I mean, I have a draft right now. It takes me too long to get to act two. It just does. It just does. And I'm fixing it. I know how to fix it, but this reminds me that I have to fix it. Like nobody's going to stay with me for that long. So, yeah, so I love this. And I also, well, this is getting into my 5 things. Yeah, this is kind of getting into my 5 things, but there's shorthand in here for things that you need to have, which I really appreciate. So the all is lost moment, like you can say that to any writer and they're going to know what it means. It comes from, well, it probably comes from a lot of places, but it's definitely in here. And you could ask yourself, is your all is lost, is enough lost? Like, are things as bad as they could be? Do you need to make it worse? Like you can, and if you can't pinpoint that moment, then you probably have a problem. And similarly, my other piece of fun shorthand from this is called the fun and games. Um, which I've also heard called the promise of the premise. So if I tell you that I am writing a book about, like beach read back here, about two writers competing to show each other that their way of writing, one is more literary and one is more romantic, is more fun than the other one. So you expect to have some fun watching those writers do that, right? And I think as writers ourselves, like we sometimes forget to really spend some really good quality time with our reader in that moment, getting to know the characters and giving the reader what they came to the book for the arc of the story, to see someone change. But they also came to the book because you had them at Two Writers on a Beach, or you had them at Girl Goes to Italy to find long lost grandmother, or whatever, or you had them at lifelong separated twins. You gotta pay that back. Like you
I
gotta
mean,
you gotta give them what they want.
this is all so good, and I'm going backwards, and I'm maybe doing something illegal for our structure, but I'm going to point out a red flag about your book, and I'm going to point it out by pointing out you're such a pro, KJ, that you can use a book like that, and you're talking about using it with an already finished draft, and using that measuring tool, or that the beat sheet. Now, what's it called? The
The
thing.
beach sheet.
Yeah, where you can do that and still maintain a sense of your own story and your own rhythm and flow in the book. And the danger that I would just point out as a red flag is if somebody's like, ooh, I'm going to get Save the Cat, and I'm going to, on page 12 I'm going to do this, and on page 13 I'm going to do this, and then page 47 I'm going to do this, and it's like reverse engineering a
Mm-hmm.
story.
Mm-hmm.
And that some people try to do that, and it usually doesn't work. You
Mm.
have to have, and you have such a deep sense of story and such a deep sense of your own stories and what you're trying to do. So you've got to have both. You have to bring both. There's no external magic bullet that's gonna solve your problem or give you, if you're like, oh, I have this situation now, what's my story going to be? I'm going to get Save the Cat, I'm going to follow exactly the thing. It doesn't often work. You have to still really dig into what you're trying to say and how you're trying to say it. And that's just my little warning.
Well, yeah, I think I would have thought, and this kind of goes back to what I said about Liz Gilbert earlier, maybe because it's the water that I swim in. I would have thought it was almost impossible to make a formulaic story out of this because you won't you can't possibly make something happen on page 12 and something happen on page 47, and then when you go back to revise you'll need to look for all the so I guess I would have thought you could follow this formula, but then you would fix it as you revised. But you have seen far more writers, so I guess
Well,
that
and
there
that
could be
goes,
the potential of that going wrong.
but that goes to a really big point. I mean, I have seen hundreds and probably actually thousands of writers through all the coaches that I coach, and they bring the issues back to me. And it's when people think there's an easy way. That's usually the danger, whatever
I'm
the way
always looking
is.
for the easy way or pretending that I'm going to find it. I
I
have to
mean,
admit
you
it.
you uniquely make things hard for yourself, I think, but
Great.
a lot of people are searching for, oh, I want to learn how to write a novel, or I have a story and I need to learn how to tell it. Just give me the thing. Just give me the rules. Just give me the structure I can put this into. Just give me, there's a book and I can't even remember the title, but it will not be a book I ever choose for our show this summer. It's that's like, here's what all the bestseller books did, and you just do this and you can write a bestseller too. And it's like data, reverse engineering, data driven on how to
I
write a.
might love that book. Is that the
Oh, this is
bestseller
gonna be
code?
great. Yes,
Yeah, all
that's
right. We're going there. In another episode, we're going there because I love that book
no. Oh,
so
that's it.
much. Fight me. All right.
Oh, we're gonna totally
New
fight it out. Maybe
episode.
we'll just do an episode on that one. But yeah, I just see a lot of writers who are just looking for the easy way out, and there is no easy way out. But if you're trying to find your own way and trying to find your own story, and you can use a tool to help you do that, use it, do it. Yes, totally. But I don't know. That's my little red
Yay
flag
for
on that one.
tools, but they can't, unfortunately, substitute. They can't do the work for you.
They can't build the house. The
Damn them.
hammer can't build the house.
Hammer can't build house. All right. Do you have 5 things that you like about the situation in the story?
I do. I mean, thing one is I just stink and love the thing on Joan Didion. So that's one thing. Thing two is I just love this really big idea that Vivian Gornick presents to us about that there's a situation and a story. I just love that for its own self. That's two things. There there is something to be said occasionally for doing a deep dive in an academic dense sort of way, so I would say that's a thing for it. And there's a lot of bookish examples, so that's always helpful. And it's just super smart. It's just a super smart little short shot
All
of a thing that you can know and use.
right. Well, I got 5 things. So, every page of this makes you think about your current manuscript. If you're in the middle of something, you can open it anywhere and it'll make you go, wait, am I getting that? Like, did I do that right? You can use it like a how-to manual. Jenny says maybe that's a bad idea, but if you're a writer like me who has a big, fat, messy story idea every time, then you can pretend that this is somehow going to help you shortcut your way to success. It is admittedly my experience that nothing helps me shortcut my way to success, but I believe wholeheartedly that someday I will figure that out. You can use this to outline at the beginning, or you can use it to outline a draft that you already have, or you can use it just because you're trying to figure out, like, you can just open this and like, okay, I'm in the middle, what should be in the middle, and try to use this to figure out what you've got in there, what you have versus what you need, which is what I'm doing right now. It teaches you to see through other books. So all of these books behind me, this teaches you to look through to see the skeleton that is holding them up, which as a reader who reads fast and reads for fun, I don't always see the skeletons. So this is great. I mean, and the examples aren't in here range from the kite runner to the girl on the train to Bridget Jones, I think is maybe one of them, to the misery. I mean, these are pop for the most part, examples, which I think is super helpful. And the last thing I like about it is what I mentioned a minute ago, is that there's just shorthand that helps you remember what's important. The fun and games shorthand, the all is lost moment, the midpoint. It just can kind of help you keep your eye on the ball. So, all
I
right.
love it. That was awesome. Well, thanks for listening to the Working Bookshelf. And next week, we're going to be talking about productivity.
Woohoo! We love that. All right. So, you know, you can always pop into the hashtag #MWriting Facebook group if you've got some books that you would like us to talk to you about. If you want to throw out your favorite book on plotting, we would love to hear it. This is the summer of writing books for us, so we're going to have some fun. And besides that, until next week, keep your butt in the chair and your head in the game.